Hello. So the topic is logic illogical? Or conversely, is logic logical? Feeling all refreshed, just took shower, mind is clear. There's this weird sound, ASMR-esque sound from outside when my windows are open. And I don't know if it's the sound of the water or the pump, water pump, or the air. It's just you get this white noise, and it's very refreshing. It's cool at night. It's summer in California, Orange County, so it's very refreshing. And it's the best time to make podcasts. Actually, very zen-like atmosphere. So one of the biggest questions in mathematics debate is mathematics a priori or a posterior, posteriori? Wow, I need hooked on phonics, guys. So I think same can be said about logic or metalogic or metamathematics. Is logic People talk about foundation of logic, but it's like saying what is the starting point of a circle? Indra built the seamless tower or the foundation. Why do you assume that it's very monolithic, hierarchical, that something must have foundation? Because if you break down logic, what is the foundation of logic? People say, oh, go study, as if some answers resides in Ayala Science Library at UCI, University of California, Irvine or something. I mean, and I've been there. The deepest I've been was like studying, not studying, like browsing through Noel Belknap. He's and I think Belknap and Anderson. They did some work on. They tried to like do some notations or like subnotations. It's like subscripts of statements, logical statements, and they tried to do meta analysis and meta logic of those subscripts. But that itself is another bullshit. It's like another trip. It's like another trap. It's like another fakery, another trompe l'oeil, another illusion. Because ultimately, any unanswered questions of logic has been decided and uh, excoriated back in the days in ancient Greece or Rome, like Sextus Empiricus or trilemma Agrippa, five trilemmas, Agrippa lemmas, and or even Buddhism or Eastern philosophy, Hinduism, like Nagarjuna tetralemma, or like which is the earliest form of multivariate logic. Like this is it, this is not it, this is both it and not it, this is neither it, not it, neti neti. So like before Lukawish, I can't even pronounce the Polish guy's name, who basically expounded on multivalued logic. So yeah, like anything you like, because logic is full of paradoxes, infinite regress, vicious cycle, and logic is illogical. Like what is the foundation is full of paradoxes, contradictions, and all the mathematical so-called proofs, proof by contradiction, reductio ad absurdum, or like reductio like ad infinitum, whatever. Like all the proofs you have. By the way, there is as an aside, there is a branch of math, a logic called intuitionism, which is nothing to do with real intuitionism. Like you can't do as you please. Like it's not like intuit. Oh, I do what I feel. It was, I think, founded by Eli J. Brower, who had his fan theorem and choice lemma, I think, theorem. But that's okay. But I'm not showing off here. I'm like, but maybe that sort of asserts and exerts some kind of credential, like yeah, I've been there, like, and it's all glossed from Wikipedia, but people have, oh, Wikipedia, yeah, but fucking Wikipedia has all this bibliography which you can fucking go to actual published papers, and you can still gloss over it and you can get the gist of it. You don't need to know every detail, cogs and wheels of nuts and bolts of cars to know how it functions. Like you can, I mean, yeah, sure, you don't have the intuitive depth of machinery of the car, but you'll know how you have basic, you can appreciate and even experience some basic characteristics of a car. So yeah, going back, Yeah, it's people say, oh, it must be very complicated, but complicated, obtuse, you must spend a devout lifetime, and somehow the PhD in philosophy, they have all the answers, or probably clerics, mullahs. That's that's what I used to think then when I was a Muslim, devout Muslim, long time, eons ago, that as if Islamic clerics, mullahs had, and I was like, oh, look at those guys, fucking in robes and beard, and they're so cool, they have all the answers to life. That faded away. Then I used to think probably, like, and I used to hold like people on you in Wikipedia, personalities in Wikipedia in exalted extreme status, and I contacted one guy who shall remain unnamed, and that guy was a basic fucking asshole. I was like, hey, I have written this paper. I gave it to one of my professor, but I was still thinking, what do you think of it? And that guy was like, and that guy's fucking a-hole. He was like as rude as he can be. He was like, oh, be grateful. Oh, so you think somehow I should leave everything, drop everything, and just devote my time to on your paper and be grateful that your professor agreed to read it. What a fucking prick, fucking a-hole, dude. And then I replied, "Oh, I'm sorry if I offended your politesse, but I thought, and I thought I said something like, I thought here, I thought you'd be interested in truth, and that's what it is. Academians, philosophers, so-called philosophers in academia and university, they're not interested in truth. They're interested in publish or perish tenure. They're not. They're more interested in writing a dissertation on Heidegger's fucking like 10th book of second edition and analyzing one paragraph and devoting a life to it. That's not fucking philosophy. That's just pretentious, pedanticism and pedagogy. So, I mean, they're not interested. If you're really interested in truth, you drop everything. That's what philosophy really means. Lover of knowledge. You don't see that. It's like people preach something. They're the ultimate hypocrites. Professor, academians. Is it academians or academicians? I shouldn't even say words that I don't know how to pronounce. Which is, but basically then I have to be mute. So yeah, like they're not interested in truth and like found it's not like they have this love fascination childlike curiosity like Einstein or whatever. It's more like pedantic pill pull and hairspray analysis. Oh, he said that it's all about and Jordan Peterson is the worst. I mean, I love some of his ideas, like how empath that the real virtue is not to be a meek person, but the real virtue is to be a fucking samurai or like warrior and just be and have it under control, be restrained. Just like I learned in Aikido, like when you wear your gi, do you know why the right side you wear the lapel, right lapel, the left one goes over the right side? There's a reason for it. It's because the right side is considered the aggressive side, the yang side, and you wanna keep it under control. That's what martial arts is all about. It's like you can be an a-hole anytime you want, but you keep it under check. So aside from that, Jordan Peterson is full of shit. He talks about all this veil of words like this jargon as if post deconstructivist, structuralist, relativist, that Marxist, so much isms and so much bullshit. Like, and a lot of people are like that, and people get impressed about it, like with these this pseudo intellectualism. Then again, I'm also another pseudo intellectual. Maybe I should put that on as a tag, pseudo intellectual podcast. So going back to the yeah, so so that was one of the, if I'm backtracking. So Jordan Peterson, that guy I contacted who was an a-hole, and then how I used to hold these people in high esteem, and that faded away. So and it's a gradual progression where I realized that logic, these are all. I think the first one was first time I realized it is when I was stoned, and I want to know what is one plus one. Why is one plus one equals two? And the thing is, it's well, See, mathematics is nothing but philosophy, actually. And there are fucking nerds who go, oh, Riemann hypothesis is true, it's only in the field of analytic philosophy. But fuck you, you idiot. Riemann hypothesis, yeah, it talks about indirectly about something, about zeta function, which has to do with prime numbers. And prime numbers, what do you mean by numbers? If you ask them, oh, so, and they'll fucking pull some fucking bullshit definition or theorem out of their ass, or like which is accept quote unquote accepted by the peers, and that's why peer reviewed is such a bullshit. It's like, how do you know? I mean, if something is published in a peer, if I say, oh, Hitler was Buddha, and it gets published in a peer reviewed journal, all these people like Centipede Game fucking sucking each other balls and cocks and fucking each other's ass, and they publish it, and they someone stamp the label, oh, okay, it's approved. That doesn't make it veridical, the truth. But that's exactly how mathematics, philosophy, logic, everything is being conducted. It's all about peer, as if they're the priests, exalted priests. Somehow they have the answers, and the lay people who are not privy to all these jargons or this years and years and years of intellectual rigor, all the fucking intellectual masturbation and like pill pool and hairspray analysis. Somehow they're deprived. They're not privy to all this arcane and esoteric knowledge. I mean, dude, do you see how? And but people assumes that like somehow logic, like, oh, logically speaking, what do you mean by logically speaking? Scientifically speaking, according to science, according to logic. But logic is faith. Logic and faith. I remember when I back in the days when I was getting stoned, like, I faith and reason, I thought of something called reason faith continuum. It's like it's a continuum. Reason and faith, at what point does reason become faith, faith become reason, or reason become faith? It's like, because even in logic, you have to start with, like in mathematics, you start with ZFC, Zermelo Frankel choice, so eight axioms, and you start with axiom of determinacy, Freiling axiom of symmetry, and like, and then you add choice, like axiom of choice, which is fascinating topic by itself, like the whole fucking Banach-Tarski paradox, which has seeped into popular culture. So yeah, like, yeah, even mathematics starts with axioms. And like set mathematics, the whole foundation of mathematics is right now is set theory, but set theory is also fucking someone's pulling these shits out of their ass, man. Before, back in the days, like Euclid started with Euclidean geometry, which is like, and started off with a point definition of point, and built the whole universe out of it, and then that got somehow destroyed with non-Euclidean geometry, and it's funny to see the parallels, like when post, I don't want to talk about. It's like when, like, when cubism started, Picasso, and that's also the radical shift was going on in physics, like Einstein, Max Planck, quantum physics. And the same with mathematics, like mathematics was also influenced, like, it's like the new whole quote unquote the Newtonian, the whole Euclidean geometry got overthrown, not overthrown, got expanded, and then just like Newtonian got overthrown or like expanded. So yeah, but still mathematics is full of is bullshit. And even one of my professor, I'll give him a shout out, he's kind of a cool guy. I mean, he's cool in his own megalomaniac way, like art. He's a cool guy, so he looks like a fucking Roman centurion. So yeah, an art. He's a rock star professor at OCC. So he was saying even mathematics, like when you go down to quantum form and everything, is literally it's it's made up of vacuum. Is like bullshit. Like I forget the exact code, but basically he was saying in linear algebra class, even those mathematics is basically is made up of nothing. Is basic bullshit basically. But then mathematics is all about hypothesis and proving, like, if something goes this and then this must be true. But what is the connection, as David Hume would say? Like, if I say, like, if 1 plus 1 equals 2, then 2 plus 2 equals 4. But why should 1 plus 1 equals 2? And even Burton Russell, Alfred White, North, they devoted like fucking pages and pages and pages. So, and yeah, going back to it, when I was stoned, I was like thinking, why is 1 plus 1 equal? What do you mean by 1? What is 1? Is one finger plus one finger equals two finger? But aren't all fingers connected in the palm? or probably water droplets, where it's one droplet of water plus one droplet equals two droplet. But if you combine them, then it becomes one droplet. So one plus one equals one. Or we go into another universe or parallel universe, or even another planet, like exo, and in another planet where laws of physics. I think I talked about all these things in my In Defense of Flat Earth podcast, or probably Zishan Muhammad Riff's, and on nearly everything and anything. I think I'm repeating myself probably, but I want to devote exclusively to this topic: is logic logical or illogical? If you go to a different planet, the laws of physics doesn't abide by the current laws of physics here. I mean, if you were to, like, suppose it's all bizarre, like you can punch through a wall, and hand goes through a wall, like laws of physics break down. And I'm not talking fourth dimension or anything, like, or like where you can bring out infinite amount of apples or balls from an urn. And if you think about that, then Jesus plucking, you know, many loaves of bread from a single, that makes sense. And I think Michio Kaku talked about, like, the fourth dimension, the third dimension miracles, so-called quote unquote miracles, can be justified in fourth dimension. But forget about fourth dimension, or like, what about distant planet where the laws of physics doesn't abide, or like where this grass, I mean, assuming there is life, there's grass grow, I mean, this plant grows, and it doesn't follow Fibonacci sequence, or like some one day the leaves are red, and the other day the leaves are, I don't know, yellow or black or whatever. And so it's like all weird. So then the laws of physics and logic would be different, and that would have a different mathematics and a different library, and even a wealth of knowledge, of body of knowledge that will be built on a different foundation of logic where anything goes basically. So what people don't realize is that logic is very subjective and it's not logical. But then they say, yeah, but logic has to do with, if this is true, then that must be true, which is basically, the skeletal structure is based on modus ponens. If P implies Q, if P, then Q. But if P implies Q, if P, then why Q? Like, why? I mean, then first of all, it's tautological. I mean, and again, if you draw a truth table, it doesn't talk about true or false, but if it's valid or not. But then again, what do you mean by valid? These are semantics, right? So if P implies P, and then Q. But what do you, when you draw that arrow sign, implies? What do you mean by implies? That it follows, entails. So I mean, that could mean anything. If suppose every 2 billion years a snowstorm is followed by a birth of a storm petrel, which is a bird, and it happens, and it happens every single time, doesn't mean the next time, after every 2 billion years, the next 2 billion years, the snow petrel will be born. Or probably, I guess, simpler, in a simplistic way, the black swan thingy, the analogy, like, yeah, like, but again, number, the whole number system, that is also man-made. The way it started was in the caveman, or I mean, as assumed, like, they want to tally, like, how many sheeps or goats or cows or whatever herd, a flock of sheep they had, and they tallied, and that's how number system began. But that's probably a time where people were not in the oceanic, the Michael Michael, what's the guy name? The Da Vinci decoded. Michael J. Gelb. He talked about it. Like, back in the days, people had oceanic feeling, like ocean. It's almost like womb, like everything is a one unity consciousness, sort of oceanic feeling. So, and somehow the dichotomy started. And if you want to talk about Plato's logos or Bible, in the beginning there was word, like, so everything was one, and then dichotomy started. And it's interesting to see the parallel how Yogananda said in the, like, God had, in autobiography of a yogi, that how God had no one else to, no friends to play with, so he or she divided himself into infinite pieces, shattered himself, so that he could play with himself. So yeah, duality arises from non-dual. And there's another good book, I think it's called How to Construct a Mathematical Universe, or something like that. I forget the term, forget the name. A mathematical universe, like, create, like, basically, it's almost like a children's book. Like, it talks about, it starts with one, two, three, how the entire number system The concept of numbers arises from 0 to 1, unity, from their dichotomy, yin and yang, from their trinity, from their quad, like four circle square, and then from, you know, and then I forgot. I think it's mathematical universe constructs. Those are the words, keywords. So yeah, is logic logical? I don't think it is. What do you mean by logical? What is logic? I mean, inherently, intuitively, we have this feeling of order. And speaking of proof, like proof and disappear, Eminem. So, what do you mean by logic proof? Like, isn't it all tautological? I published one. I didn't publish. I uploaded one of the papers in Phil papers. It's called is is Euclid's proof of infinitude of prime numbers tautological. So I was being coy, but the whole thing is the whole mathematics is tautological. Philosophy is tautological. Logic is tautological. Logic is circular. It's cycle. It's a cycle, a vicious cycle, a vicious circular logic. Like I mean, what do you mean by like when you say? I lost my train of thought. So if yeah, P implies Q. Like I mean, yeah, intuitively we have a sense of feeling like oh, logic must be order, system, like structure. But what do you mean by those? It's like these are nothing but these are again semantic plays. Like mathematics is nothing but syntax and semantics, and the whole underpinning, the scaffold, the upholstery of behind philosophy, mathematics is logic, and behind that is philosophy. So when people say, "Oh, Riemann hypothesis is true only in the field of analytical philosophy," it doesn't say anything about yeah, but fucking it has a logical fucking value, like logical underpinning to it. And in the formula and out there, I think the best way to solve Riemann hypothesis would be to take a philosophical approach, like metalogical approach, like the whole. What kind of hierarchy it is, like the whole pi symbol. Like I think Matiasevich, Matiasevich, the Russian guy, he briefly touched on it. Matiasevich or something. The guy there who solved one of Hilbert's problem. So yeah, proof. Yeah, that's where I was going. When we say proof, what do you mean by proof? Like even Fermat's last theorem solved by Andrew Wiles, or like four color theorem is how when at what point does a proof ceases to be proof? Like I mean, for example, some guy wants to see a ghost, and I take it, and the only way you can do that is you go to Chad, the country, not the person, country. From there, take a bus to Nigeria, Lagos, and from there take a trip. It's like weird convoluted way where the Occam's razor doesn't hold. The only way you can do it is like almost like a witchcraft, like it's like a spell. Like you do this that, and then like a Candyman, like you follow the sequence of events, and then you can see a ghost or whatever. But so and that's the only way. But is there a proof? Or some guy has a direct experience with ghosts? Is that a proof? You don't have a direct experience. I mean, you can't have a direct experience of numbers or a four color theorem. The proof of it's just it's almost a legerdemain. It's like a sleight of hand. It's like someone drops all this bullshit like logic, like logical symbols and notations, and someone gives the illusion that they're proving something, but it's they're not proving anything. Proof means what does it mean to prove something, like convince someone that something is true or but how does if you can't even understand like Taniyama Shimura conjecture and all those shit, and if the handful of people can understand it, is that even a proof? I mean, yeah, mathematicians talk about elegant proof, yeah, but and then the subjective, like what is beauty and what is elegant and what is Erdish. Paul Erdish talked about the book where God has some kind of book where it has all this elegant proof. And in modern in nowadays in contemporary times of 5-MeO DMT and whatever, even though I haven't taken it, you realize how primitive and naive these people were. Like who used to think that even some heavyweights like Erdős or Tursky or like Quiney, like all the people, all the things they adhere to, it's like, and that's I took salvia, and that's when like a long time ago, and yeah, accidentally, and that's when I realized all these are bullshit. It's like meaningless. Logic. We merely have an illusion of a semblance of something called logic. But logic, there is no such thing as logic. I'm not saying, but I mean, like take Zen for example, Buddhism, like where contradiction is, yeah, contradiction is valid or like goes like it's accepted or like paradoxes. Actually, Priest even uh wanted to has a body of work on where like contradictions are allowed in mathematics, but where something can be true and false at the same time. I think omega consistency or inconsistency of Gödel, that also deals with that. Like, I think omega inconsistency is if something is omega consistent and inconsistent, that is omega inconsistent or whatever. I don't even know what that means, but the point being, yeah, even paradox can be. If I think I would be interested in mathematics and logic when paradox is allowed, or catch 22, Ouroboros, circular, that itself chaos, like how Zeus and Kronos they were birthed from chaos. Just like that, even mathematics can be born out of chaos, and like out of chaos emerges order. Like, so you start with like hypergame paradox or whatever. You start with, yeah, zero equals true is false, false is true. That's your starting point, and then you build something. That would be interesting. But then everything will. It's like absurd. What's that called? Explosion, principle of explosion. Everything falls apart, right? Like Sunday can be Monday, and then again, if that is the case, principle of the law of non. It's been a while. It's been a minute. I studied these things. So yeah, and there are people who talks. What do you mean? But what is the meaning of meaning? Or like, uh, and there's this vagueness theory. People can go deep balls deep in it, in the Sorites paradox and whatever. And I used to hang around in science library and UCI, the normal library. I forgot the name, Langston. And even though I did not attend UCI, and it's not like you go to some section that's the start. It's not like you can start sort of you follow that like there's the starting book and there's the end book. You do that and you get it. Reality is not like that. There is no answer out there. It's not like you do that and you solve a problem like a puzzle or a jigsaw puzzle. It doesn't work like that. Like basically, and that's for the noobs or who hasn't attended college or who comes to this country. That can be that could be a notion of discomfiture because you because there is no answer. Anything goes basically. Like, but still people thinks there is answer. There's some logical answer like scientific according to science, as if that is the be all and end all. But even meta logic that and you can go and then you can study meta logic, and there is I think branch of mathematics called meta mathematics, like Hilbert or other people like Lopes paradox deals with meta logic or modal logic. But again, it's like you're expanding something. It's like it's like you're substituting one drug for another. Like you quit drinking, but now you fucking started smoking joint, or like you stopped joint and you started fucking doing meth, or I don't know. So Alfred Tarski was a speed freak. I think Paul Erdős and Tarski both were speed freaks. Yeah, they used to do not like fucking amphetamines, both of them, and that's interesting. Like how amphetamines feel. I think it was who was it? Erdős talked about a mathematician is a machine for turning coffee into theorems. Yeah, speaking of theorems, like so, I mean, yeah, in my paper, quote unquote paper, like when I talk about is the infinity of is the proof of infinity of prime numbers Euclid, is it tautological? I mean, if you create a problem, it's like Hamlin's pipe, but not Hamlin's pipe, but it's like you start the fire and and you call the firefighter and you take credit for it. That's what basically mathematics is. You create a problem and then use the same system to answer that problem, and you somehow think you solved it. What the fuck? It's like saying, if this then that. But why? What do you mean by if? What do you mean by if this? What is if? Well, it's a conditional. It's a antecedent or consequent. And yeah, but what do you mean by antecedent? Like if something happens and then this if anything entails, but then you think of sequential, linear way. Maybe time and life is not, space time is not linear. Why do you assume space time is linear? Everything, like, only reason mathematics and logic exists is because you can fucking write it down on a piece of paper. And piece of paper that's very linear, progressive, rational, incremental progression. But real life is not like that. When you look at a, like a bar, you know, those bars, those no entry bars come with those, um which is like yellow and black, you know, diagonal slashes. Like, you comprehend it all at the same time, or better yet, even a painting. You don't read it left to right, like, yeah, or like up and down. It's almost like a boostropheron. It's like you, or not even boostropheron. It's like you experience it, you absorb it like all at once. But the moment you want to do something on piece of paper with pen and ink, you can't do that. You can just say, okay, like, how do I know this table exists? Because I can experience it. But how do you convey that on a piece of paper? You just have to say mathematically, what is the proof that this table exists? You just have to say, because I experience it. But if a mathematician say, oh, because assume, let x be this abstract, square, with a planar with a plane, and from which comes out another plane, and if this is this, then this must happen. But in real life doesn't work like that. Human beings wants to make a sense of all the information, sense, info, and everything that's going on in the world, that is filtered through their brain. And so, to not to lose their mind, to keep sanity intact, they they intuit, not intuit, they almost invent this artificial structure and paradigm and logic and whatever, just so that they don't go crazy. But in reality, there is no logic, and you don't need psychedelics to figure this shit out. If you think, like, like, even all men by nature desire to know, as Aristotle said that. And it's like, even baby, like, baby is the best philosopher. Babies, kids, children, like, not a baby, like children, like toddler, like, where do this come from? Well, why is sky blue? Like, yeah, if you think about it, and you can't answer it because it's all circular. Like there is no chain of reasoning. Those are chain of reasoning are artificial. Then you say, oh, if its logic is illogical, why does a bridge, suspension bridge, doesn't fall apart? And that's a valid question, a point. Like, does it mean the sky, I mean, sky, why doesn't the sky fall down? Like, there was the guy's name, the asterisk guy, who used to think Vanks, I don't know, I just started with V, the guy who used to think the sky will fall down. So why doesn't suspension bridge fall if logic is illogical? That's science, that's mathematics, that's solid research physics. This, well, but I think that's kind of like a straw man. That's like saying, yeah, that has nothing to do with like logic. People conflate logic with, like, certainty. Like, by the way, another interesting fields are uncertainty theory, or Gregory Chetan is a good is he's a cool guy. The guy who thought, who omega, the Gregory Chetan's constant, omega, and algorithmic, Kolmogorov of complexity theory, all those computability theory. So yeah, um like, that has nothing to do with logic. Actually, we should actually define what do you mean by logic. What is logic? Logos, right? It comes from logos, right? What do you mean by logic? We have to go beyond this whole symbolic manipulation, this modus ponens, modus tona, hypothetical syllogism, because who is to say hypothetical syllogism is not valid? I mean, how do you? It could very well not be valid. If A implies B, B implies C, then A implies C. Maybe not. Then again, what do you mean by implies? Right? Imply. What do you mean by implies? That itself is undefined. It's like you cannot define. It's like a you cannot define definition. Like it's like like a dictionary. Like you look up one meaning, and it'll redirect you to it's all recursive. But nowadays intuitively we can understand this because people because due to this explosion of psychedelics, this internet, Wikipedia, people have so much knowledge at access to knowledge at their fingertips. They intuitively they know that yeah, logic is not logical, but we pretend it is. We the way we act, and that's why people like in the internet, in the Facebook, it gets like the people you can't change people out of mind because the guy like we have 7 billion or it's like 6 billion people or whatever. Like each people has their own axiomatic foundation. It's like and that itself is perfectly valid. If some kid in Belarus saw a bus hit their mom and they died and they grew an orphan, well, he would have a different perspective in life than some rich ass kid in fucking Malibu who thought like spiders, whose first spiders, the spider he saw was golden. He would think all spiders like the point being each people have their own epistemological like it's like if chain of like imagine they're infinite axioms like infinite statements and it's like and each statement is an experience so but obviously no two humans are having the same exact experience so obviously we build a foundation or like a body of reasoning which is based on our own experiences so it's all subjective so if that is the case is logic logical because obviously you cannot change your mind on either in debates or in Facebook or that's what Raymond Smullyan like well mused how a Taoist says a sage says a sage doesn't argue because see all Taoism is like Taoism is which is rife riddled with paradoxes it gets it like yeah you cannot I mean it cannot the Tao that we talked about is not the real Tao is like I mean to me it's all intuitive like it's all common sense it's just like the back of my palm like I mean yeah it's like but then we still act the way we function in life it's as if there is logic is like order but that's just an illusion though logic is an illusion because it's almost like if you break down mathematics you get logic and you break that down you get philosophy and that is language and if you break that language down so you see or I think a more interesting question is even before the baby learns to speak a language child what's how do they reason because they can't reason without a language so does that mean they don't have logic or is it because they live in an oceanic state of mind where whatever they want is kind of like and law of attraction really does manifest like if they want an apple somehow because their mind frame and their viewpoint of this world the point of view of this world is like such that they're in a non-dual universe like whatever they want they can get it but they don't consciously want that it's almost like the be it's like a whole being it's like its own existence it's like isness this is why Buddhism and Taoism is superior to Western philosophy even though we still study Western philosophy at school and whatever Heidegger whatever I don't know Schopenhauer and whatnot and it just gets more and more sophisticated and more nuanced and more subtle and more degrees are there more degrees of but still it's the same old bullshit it's like As I said, you're switching one drug for another. It's all this that can be people, like, the arrogance to think that people who has existed for millennia did not think about it. Roman philosopher Socrates, all these people got it, like Zeno of Ilia, and like they knew it. Because you don't have to think, you don't need to like do some bong riffs and wait for weed to kick in to actually think about this thing. It doesn't take long before you realize that all, especially in these nowadays, that these are all farce, these are all facade, like. So you just if you go to logic, I don't know, if you go to Wikipedia, what would you say? First order logic, predicative logic, blah blah blah, and these are all just jargons and words and semantics, but these are all concepts. And I remember, like, when I was in, just for a week I took history of architecture in a class, and there was like, no, sorry, my bad, that's not in that class. I think it was physics, and that's just like, oh, it might seem this physics is like it's I don't know his exact words, but he was saying it may seem airy fairy, but there's some deep logic, mathematical, heavy machinery behind it, mathematical logic, as if that's a cop out. There is no such thing as that. Just because you don't understand, just because there's some inscrutable tomes in some library in some Harvard or MIT or Library of Congress which talks about some symbolic manipulation, doesn't mean that that is it. That is the foundation or the truth or the veridical secret or mystery, secret to the mystery of the cosmos. Because the whole system is all fucked up. The way things are published, it's like, I mean, Terence Tao. I'm sure he's a great guy. He's considered Mozart of mathematics, but these are people that are the gatekeepers. I think he's the gatekeeper for annals of mathematics. So he gets to decide which papers gets to publish or not. And I can just flat out say, hey, mathematics is tautological. What's your proof? My statement itself is the proof. They'll never publish it. I mean, they'll die. The whole universe will burn to ground before they publish it. So these people are the gatekeepers. So what gives them the authority? It's argument from authority. I remember, I think I talked about it. Like, I was in English class, English critical thinking. This kid was like, "Oh, but it's accepted. It's recognized argument. What the fuck? What do you mean by recognized from argument from authority? Who the fuck recognizes them? It's all circular. We the reason why it's a recognized form of authority is because we are the ones who give them the power. Yeah, just because some hack comes up with some statement from Harvard or MIT and say, oh, if this, then this, milk is detrimental to health, then I mean, why should he accept it? Who the I mean, no, it's peer reviewed journal, blah blah, published, double blind control study. Yeah, but there's so many blind spots, people don't realize it. Like, whole science, philosophy, body of knowledge, and if empiricism, like, sorry, knowledge itself, it has a lot of blind spots. There are a lot of things you cannot know. Just like Gödel's incompleteness theorem, or Schrodinger's, not Schrodinger, shit, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Even in logic, there are some things you can, yeah, just like Cantor, like, forget about Cantor's diagram, or like Cohen forcing. I don't even know what Cohen forcing. I don't know what I'm talking about. I think Cohen forcing. What is Cohen forcing? Okay, who cares? The point that I'm trying to convey is, even logic has blind spots. And Frege, Barton Russell, Cantor, they went berserk. They went they went crazy, like fucking, like, balls out crazy, because they're trying to make it head or tails of it. I mean, like, and they somehow patch it together. It's like a sinking boat where, like, they somehow patch it together, and somehow, or like if a tire we just getting ruptured with a nail, they somehow patch it, and again another place. It's like plate spinning. You want to balance that, and some other thing will be broken. And the point I'm saying is like, yeah, they create a set theory, but those are, again, that's another bullshit. It's another fairy tale, airy fairy, fucking theoretical bullshit, bulwark. um because yeah, in 20th century they found out pretty quickly that, like, Barton Russell, the set, the, like, Russell's paradox, The set that contains itself, does it contain itself, something like that. Like, yeah, like if you, or like suppose if you were to go to like go to like arrange all the paintings of the world and paint that, that painting itself will not be in that, it will be in a different set. So similarly, like logic has a lot of blind spots, philosophy, and it like, so if logic has blind spots, how can it be logical then? It's almost like saying, yeah. So I mean, what I'm saying is, and maybe in those blind spots is the realm of magic, because a lot of things are like unprovable, even a lot of theorems in mathematics are unprovable. Maybe just like that in logic, a lot of things are like not arrived by logic. And I'm not, excuse me, I'm not talking about abstract concepts like love, humor, emotions, those stuff. I'm just like, even like, or ponder this: logic is illogical. That statement, is that logical? What do you mean by is? True is false. Is that logical? Is that valid? Well, those, according to classical logicians, they'll say no. That's contradiction, like principle of explosion and whatnot. But, and then you beg the question: why is that not valid? Who are the gatekeepers? Who are the authority figure? Quis obsissos custodius, or I probably butchered the code, the Latin code. Who watches the watchman? Who guards the guardsman? Who's the judge of the judge? Who judges the judge? So exactly, like what is the meta-analysis of logic, or the meta-analysis of meta-analysis? It's like, but does it mean, and it can, some people can literally go insane and crazy. Like if that means, if there's no heads or tail, you can make heads or tails of all this. It's like a giant, this woolly mammoth, or like this Brobdingian, this creature which is the called Atman or self, Amit Goswami, self or universe. The universe is like this, the elephant and the five blind men and the elephant. It's almost like the universe itself is like this creature, giganticus australo, I mean, this the dinosaur, like this weird creature. And people, all these billions and billions of people, are these blind men who are trying to get this bite of it, and they are trying the best to explain it. Ultimately, it's all fingers pointing to the moon. Like we all, like all this valid kernel of truth in all of them. That's like Nasiruddin Hoja, like, yeah, you're right, and you're right. It's almost like everyone is right. It's almost like you go to a mountaintop, and from the vista from there, it's like you see how all like it's like a Tower of Babel almost, like similar, like all the people from all different it's like Everest, like, or like whatever, like tallest point. And some tallest, like there are some mountains where you can see four states. I don't know if it's in Tennessee, or like I don't know which state, or like some countries in the world, or like where you can see different countries, or like whatever you go, I think Barsh Khalifa or whatever. The point I'm trying to say, to convey is, yeah, from one perspective, per God's perspective, all reasoning is valid. It's like, yeah, it's like everything is true. Like any statement you say is true. It's like valid, or rather, like it's almost like you start with a vacuum, probability space, and anything goes. It's like a blank state, or like a blank paper, or like canvas, and anything can be drawn. But mathematicians start off with something finite and something different, and it's all a matter of taste. That's why we say, according to perturbation theory, according to information theory, according to statistics, you know, because people don't know, and they'll never know. It's like theory of everything told. Like, how do you know? Can there be a grand unified theory of everything? Maybe if we're enlightened, it can be. Who knows? I'll end it on that note. I'm tired. I'm burned out. Peace.